Have you ever noticed that the most powerful person in the room is rarely the loudest? Think about it. Every time you have been in a meeting, a gathering, a confrontation, there is almost always one person who says very little. They don't rush to fill silence. They don't scramble to be heard. They don't interrupt. They don't perform. They simply sit, observe, and when they do speak, the entire room stops. There is something magnetic about a person like that, because in a world that rewards noise, that celebrates constant self-expression, that tells us to share every thought and fill every silence, a person who chooses quiet stands out like a mountain in a flat field. The Stoics knew this secret more than 2,000 years ago. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoic philosophy, was famous for saying very little. His students once asked him why he listened so much more than he spoke. His answer was simple: "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." Today we explore 10 traits that people who speak less share. Not because they are shy, not because they have nothing to say, but because they have understood something about power, wisdom, and peace that most people spend their entire lives chasing without ever finding. Stay with me. Before we begin, I want to be clear about something. Speaking less is not the same as being passive. It is not weakness. It is not social anxiety. It is not indifference. In fact, it is the opposite of all of those things. The Stoics divided human experience into 2 categories: things within our control and things outside our control. Our words are one of the few things entirely within our control. Every sentence we speak is a choice, and people who speak less have simply become very intentional about that choice. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men who ever lived, the emperor of Rome, commander of armies, ruler of millions, wrote privately in his meditations about the discipline of speech. He reminded himself constantly to say only what was necessary, to resist the urge to fill silence with noise, and to measure his words before releasing them into the world. Epictetus, who began life as a slave and became one of the greatest philosophers in history, taught that most human suffering comes from things we should never have said. He believed that an untrained tongue was one of the most dangerous things a person could possess. And Seneca wrote, "Let silence be your goal for the most part. Say only what is necessary and in few words." These were not quiet men by accident. They were quiet men by discipline, and that discipline shaped everything: their relationships, their reputations, their inner peace, their power. Here are the 10 traits they shared, and that all people who speak less carry with them. But before we get into trait number 1, if you are getting value from this place, take 1 second right now and hit that like button. It costs you nothing, and it helps this content reach more people who need it. And if you are not yet subscribed, do it now and ring the bell so you never miss a video like this one. All right, let us get into it. Trait number 1. They think before they speak. This sounds obvious. Everyone would say they think before they speak. But the truth is, most people do the opposite. They speak in order to think. They use words as a way of processing their thoughts in real time, out loud, in front of other people. People who speak less have reversed this entirely. They think first, privately, and completely, and only then do they allow words to leave their mouth. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." The same principle applies to speech. First know what you mean, then say it. This creates something remarkable in conversation. When a person who speaks less finally does say something, it has weight. It has been considered. It doesn't meander. It doesn't contradict itself 3 sentences in. It lands with a precision that thoughtless speech never can. The Stoics practiced something called the pause, a deliberate gap between receiving information and responding to it. Epictetus taught that this pause was where freedom lived. Between what happens to you and what you say about it, there is a moment of choice. Most people skip it entirely. People who speak less inhabit it fully. The next time you feel the urge to respond immediately, in an argument, in a meeting, in any conversation where your emotions are engaged, try this. Breathe once. Ask yourself, is what I am about to say true? Is it necessary? Does it improve on the silence? If the answer to any of those questions is no, you already have your answer. Thinking before speaking is not hesitation, it is mastery. Trait number 2. They are deeply comfortable with silence. Most people are terrified of silence. In conversation, in groups, in one-on-one moments, the moment silence descends, something in most people panics. They rush to fill it. They say whatever comes to mind. They laugh nervously. They talk about the weather. Anything to escape the discomfort of the quiet. This terror of silence reveals something important, a dependence on external noise to avoid internal discomfort. The Stoics understood that silence is not empty. It is full. It is where observation happens. It is where clarity forms. It is where the most important thinking takes place. Seneca wrote, "Retire into yourself as much as you can." He wasn't talking about physical isolation. He was talking about the ability to be fully present inside your own mind, not rattled, not performing, not scrambling for words, but genuinely at home in the quiet. People who speak less have cultivated this comfort over time. They have learned that silence is not awkward. It is honest. It is what exists when no one is performing. And when you stop being afraid of it, something shifts in the way others perceive you. Because people who are at ease in silence project a kind of confidence that no amount of talking can manufacture. Think about the most composed person you have ever known. Did they rush to fill every gap in conversation? Or did they sit with silence the way someone sits with a cup of tea, unhurried, present, unafraid? Practice silence today, not as punishment, as cultivation. Trait number 3, they listen to understand, not to respond. There are two kinds of listeners in the world. The first kind listens with half their attention on what is being said and the other half preparing their response. They are waiting for their turn. They are building their argument. They are half in the conversation and half in their own head. The second kind listens completely. They give the speaker their full attention, not as a courtesy, but because they genuinely want to understand what is being communicated before they decide what, if anything, to say. People who speak less almost always belong to the second category. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." But listening twice as much is only the surface of it. The deeper practice is listening with the intention to truly understand, not to judge, not to prepare a counter, not to wait for a pause to insert your own story, but to actually receive what another person is saying. This kind of listening is rare, and it is felt by the people being listened to. When someone gives you their full attention, when you sense that they are actually in the room with you, not rehearsing a reply, something opens up. You speak more honestly. You think more clearly. You trust them more deeply. People who speak less are often described as magnetic, as wise, as easy to talk to, and this is precisely why. They are not waiting to perform. They are actually present. And presence, in a distracted world, is one of the rarest and most generous gifts one person can offer another. Listen today with the intention to understand, not to respond, not to fix, not to redirect, simply to understand. Trait number 4, they guard their energy. Words cost something. Not everyone knows this, but people who speak less have felt it deeply. Every unnecessary conversation, every argument that didn't need to happen, every opinion offered when it wasn't asked for, every hour spent in trivial talk, costs energy that cannot be recovered. The Stoics were deeply aware of this. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations about the importance of eliminating everything unnecessary from life. Unnecessary possessions, unnecessary commitments, unnecessary thoughts, and unnecessary words. Not because life should be sparse and joyless, but because everything we give our energy to shapes who we become. People who speak less apply this principle to conversation. They are selective. They engage deeply when depth is warranted. They disengage gracefully when it is not. They do not feel obligated to have an opinion on everything. They do not feel compelled to make their presence known in every room. They choose their conversations the way a skilled craftsman chooses their tools, with care, with purpose, and with an understanding that using the wrong tool wastes both the tool and the work. This is not coldness. This is not arrogance. It is stewardship. It is the recognition that your attention and your words are among the most precious things you possess, and that handing them out carelessly to anyone who demands them is not generosity. It is waste. Seneca's most famous line speaks directly to this. "It is not that I have so little time, it is that I waste so much of it." The same is true of words. It is not that we have so little to say, It is that we say so much that means so little. Guard your energy. Choose your words. Both will serve you better for it. Trait number 5. They do not seek validation through words. Much of what people say, far more than most would admit, is not really about communication. It is about approval. It is about being seen. It is about managing how other people perceive them. The story told at a dinner party, the opinion offered in a meeting, the subtle self-promotion woven into casual conversation. Underneath most of it is a quiet, hungry need. Please think well of me. People who speak less have largely freed themselves from this need. This does not mean they don't care about others. It means they have found a different source of self-regard, one that does not depend on external confirmation. The Stoics called this living according to nature, which meant living in alignment with reason and virtue, regardless of what others thought about it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others." He saw the contradiction clearly. We claim to love ourselves most, but we outsource our sense of worth to strangers. People who speak less have resolved this contradiction. They have done the inner work, through reflection, through Stoic practice, through honest self-examination, to know who they are well enough that they do not need a constant stream of words to reassure themselves of it. This shows up in conversation as a profound lack of defensiveness. They do not need to win arguments. They do not need the last word. They do not need to convince you of their worth. They already know it, and that knowledge renders most defensive speech unnecessary. The quieter your need for approval, the more powerful your words become when you choose to use them. Trait number 6. They observe more than they judge. In any given situation, there are 2 responses available to us. We can judge, assign a label, form an opinion, declare something good or bad, right or wrong, worthy or unworthy. Or we can observe, watch what is actually happening, gather information, understand context, and withhold conclusion until we have enough to form one worth having. Most people default to judgment instantly, automatically, and loudly. People who speak less tend to observe first, sometimes for a very long time, before arriving at any conclusion at all. This is deeply Stoic. Marcus Aurelius practiced what philosophers call epoche, the suspension of judgment. He trained himself to see things as they were before deciding what they meant. He observed. He understood. He did not simply react. People who speak less carry this quality into every room they enter. They watch. They notice things others miss. The tension between 2 people, the insecurity beneath someone's bravado, the real question hiding beneath the stated one. Because they are not busy performing or talking, they are available to actually see, and when they do eventually speak, they speak from that seeing, which is why their words so often feel accurate, considered, and true in a way that impulsive speech rarely does. Observe more today, judge less. Let the picture develop fully before you decide what it means. Trait number 7. They are unbothered by the need to be right. Arguments are fascinating to watch because most of the time the argument stopped being about the topic several exchanges ago. What it has become is a battle for status, for dominance, for the satisfaction of having the other person admit they were wrong. Both parties have long since stopped listening. They are simply firing. People who speak less rarely end up in these battles, not because they avoid conflict, but because they have released the need to win it. The Stoics were very clear on this. Epictetus taught that we should never place our sense of self-worth in things that can be taken away from us, including being proven right in an argument. If your peace depends on others agreeing with you, then your peace is hostage to every person you encounter. That is a fragile way to live. People who speak less understand this. They may have a clear and firm position on something. They may even be certain they are correct. But they do not need you to confirm it. They do not need to argue until you submit. They will state their view once, clearly, and then let it stand or fall on its own merits. This confuses people who are accustomed to arguments. They expect resistance. They expect escalation. And when it doesn't come, when the person across from them simply says their piece and then becomes quiet, the argument deflates. There is nothing to fight. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it." People who speak less have metabolized this truth. They know that the satisfaction of winning an argument is always smaller than the cost of having fought it. Let others be right sometimes. Your peace is worth more than the point. Trait number 8. They understand the power of timing. It is not only what you say that matters, it is when you say it. A truth spoken at the wrong moment can do more damage than a lie. A question asked too early can close a conversation that needed more time to open. A solution offered before the problem has been fully expressed can feel dismissive, even when it is correct. People who speak less have an almost intuitive understanding of timing, because they spend so much time observing that they develop a sensitivity to the rhythm of conversations, relationships, and situations that faster talkers simply don't have access to. The Stoics valued what the ancient Greeks called kairos, the right moment. Not just any moment, but the precise moment when an action or a word will have its greatest effect. They distinguished this from chronos, ordinary, sequential time. Kairos is the moment of opportunity, the moment when the door is open, the moment when the other person is ready to hear. People who speak less wait for kairos. They do not rush. They do not force. They hold what they have to say until the moment arrives when it will actually land, when the person across from them is in a state to receive it, when the context supports it, when the silence has created enough space for the words to matter. This patience in speech is a form of respect for the other person, for the subject at hand, and for the truth itself. A truth delivered at the wrong time to an unreceptive person is not wasted wisdom. It is simply noise. Wait for the right moment. The right words at the right time can change everything. Trait number 9. They have a rich and active inner life. People who talk constantly are often, at some level, escaping themselves. Silence is uncomfortable because in silence, you are alone with your thoughts. And if your inner world is chaotic, painful, or simply unexamined, silence feels like a threat. People who speak less have generally done the work to make their inner world somewhere worth being. Their minds are not empty. They are full of questions they are sitting with, full of ideas they are developing, full of observations they are processing, full of reflections on what they have read, experienced, or felt. Marcus Aurelius is perhaps the greatest example of this in all of history. His meditations, written entirely for himself, never intended to be published, reveal a man whose inner world was extraordinarily rich. He examined his motives, questioned his assumptions, confronted his failures, and wrestled with the deepest questions of virtue, mortality, and meaning. Every day, privately, in silence. This inner life was what made his outer composure possible. He didn't need to perform in public because he had done the real work in private. He didn't need applause because he had his own honest assessment. He didn't need noise because the quiet was where his most important conversations were happening with himself. Epictetus taught that the examined life, constantly reflecting on what you are doing, why you are doing it, and whether it aligns with your highest values, was the only life worth living. Not as self-punishment or anxious rumination, but as an ongoing, curious inquiry into who you are becoming. Cultivate your inner world. Read deeply, reflect honestly, sit with your own thoughts without running from them. The richer your inner life becomes, the less you will need external noise to feel alive. Trait number 10. They speak to add value, not to fill space. This is the trait that ties everything together. Every word that a person who speaks less chooses to say has passed through an internal filter, not a rigid or anxious one, but a natural, practiced one. The question the filter asks is simple. Does this need to be said? Does it add something, clarity, warmth, truth, usefulness, to the moment? Or is it simply filling the air? Most speech, if we are honest, is the latter. It is filler. It is performance. It is the verbal equivalent of fidgeting. Something we do not because it serves a purpose, but because silence makes us uncomfortable. Seneca wrote, "Say only what is necessary, not what is clever, not what will impress, not what will make you seem knowledgeable or interesting or relatable. What is necessary? What actually needs to exist in the air between you and another person? When this becomes your standard, when you genuinely, consistently ask yourself whether your words are adding value before you release them, two things happen. First, you say far less. You discover that enormous amounts of what you were about to say were unnecessary, not because you are shallow, but because most conversation is filler. And once you develop the ability to see the filler for what it is, you stop producing it automatically. Second, what you do say becomes extraordinary. Because it has been chosen. Because it means something. Because it comes from a place of genuine consideration rather than nervous habit. The people in your life will notice. They will begin to lean in when you speak. Not because you have performed your way to credibility, but because they have learned, through experience, that when you open your mouth, it is worth hearing. This is the quiet power of the person who speaks less. Not power over others, power within themselves. The power of a person who has mastered the one instrument we are all given, and most people never learn to play well, their own voice. And before we move into the conclusion, I want to take a moment to acknowledge something. You just made it through all 10 traits. Most people click away, most people scroll on, but you stayed, and that says something real about you. It tells me that this is not just passive listening for you. Something in this content is speaking to something in you. So genuinely, thank you for being here, and I hope you carry at least one of these traits with you when you leave. Now let us bring all 10 together. People who speak less think before they speak. They are comfortable with silence. They listen to understand, not to respond. They guard their energy. They do not seek validation through words. They observe more than they judge. They are unbothered by the need to be right. They understand the power of timing. They have a rich and active inner life, and they speak to add value, not to fill space. None of these are traits you are born with. Every single one of them is a practice, a discipline, a choice made again and again until it becomes character. The Stoics did not believe in passive transformation. They believed in active, daily, deliberate work on the self, that through consistent practice and reflection, you can become someone fundamentally different from who you were yesterday. And one of the most powerful places to begin that transformation is here, with your words. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." Not the argument from last week, not the impression you want to make next month, the present moment, this conversation, these words, now. What would change in your life if you spoke half as much and listened twice as much? What would you notice that you currently miss? What would people feel in your presence that they currently don't? You don't have to answer those questions out loud. Sit with them. That in itself is the beginning of the practice. If this video spoke to something in you, if even one of these 10 traits made you pause and think, that is already the practice beginning. Don't scroll past that feeling. Sit with it. If you found value here, hit the like button. It helps this video reach more people who need this content. Subscribe if you haven't already, and share this with someone who embodies the power of speaking less. Leave a comment below telling me which of the 10 traits resonated most, or which one feels like your greatest challenge. Until next time, speak less, listen more, and remember the words of Epictetus. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. Stay grounded, stay intentional, stay free.